Welcome, everyone, and welcome, BJ Penn. BJ, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Doc. Thanks for having me.
When it came to being the toughest guy in town, before you learned jiu-jitsu, did you ever learn how to box, or you just were kind of a natural
Yeah,
sport?
you know what? We really love boxing. We always used to watch boxing all the time. We had boxing gloves over here. And, I remember one time I had to put on the gloves, and this guy, he was 3 years older, but he was nice to me too, though. He was just kind of like, he knew more than me, so then he was kind of like punching me and stuff, and I was kind of flinching bad. And then one time we just squat one bit. One time I just realized like it doesn't hurt the punching, or in that sense, you know what I mean? We know how it feels. Like, of course, it's gonna hurt, and it's a shock to your brain and everything. But it, from that time, I was like, oh, the punches don't hurt, and then I just started punching as much as I could.
Okay. Now, because obviously you've been interviewed probably 1,000 times in your life, your journey to jiu-jitsu, with what your dad told you to do when you started training with the guy locally, it's kind of been documented, so we don't have to go through that again. But I do want to fast forward to when you finally got to Northern California as a white belt. I think you're white belt, maybe blue belt, when you started with Ralph Gracie. What were did you just think, I'll just go to California for 6 months? Or did you say, no, I'm going here to become like a jiu-jitsu champ and a MMA fighter? What were you thinking?
I remember flying up, and I remember sitting next to some older woman, and I remember telling her like, yeah, maybe I think I found what I was gonna do with my life or something like that. I don't know how that came up. I kind of just said it, but I knew I liked it. But I really didn't see any future in it in my head. I just kind of stayed there and started training with them. Health is one of the best ever, man. The guy, he's even right now. I'm sure if you go to when you grow up with him, especially at our age, and you don't mind just how you gotta go to somebody's house. You gotta go, and he's have to take your stole. You have to think there's all that there.
I hear you. So let me, and again, when you mentioned Dave, you're mentioning Dave Camarillo, I would think. But what I wanted to ask you was, when did you realize, because, you're there with other tough guys, Dave Camarillo, Kurt, whoever else is there, right, yeah. Cameron. When did you realize, man, I'm really good at this, like a natural, like I am going to be one of the best guys at this academy, or maybe even in the world?
You know what? I was probably like the first to set. It was like I remember when I could I would do, I would start getting Cameron, and then I would start like Dave was always our teacher. Dave was always the best of all of us. Dave was always our teacher. And then he had the unbelievable triangle and armbar was our mother level. That mixed with the judo, he'll throw you, and then as soon as he's down on your back, he does the armbar. So he was always put as a teacher. You know what? It was after my first. I knew I would do good with everybody. Just Dave was a little better, and then I went to the tournaments, and then that's why I could stay pretty relaxed and calm in the tournaments and do what I needed to do. You know what I mean? Everybody's different in that time, right? Some people better in the gym, some people better in the tournament, some people the same in both.
Well, let me ask you this, and I know this has been documented in interviews, but let's just explore it a little bit.
Yeah.
I think maybe were a purple belt. You can correct me if I'm wrong. When you went from House to Novignan, but my question is, how much before you left did you start thinking about leaving? Like, was it kind of in your head, like, I should leave here for a reason X, Y, or Z a few months before you left?
Sharuto and them were down here training, and it was a different style. It was because we were using a lot of the Baja stuff. We were stacking underneath and grabbing and passing, but this was a lot more over the knees, like the shoulder and the chest, in their chest, and kind of jumping with your legs. And when I kind of started seeing those passes, and then And then I started being able to pass Dave's guard real easy when I started using those passing, because that's what it is. The two different schools that they sit up and do the sit up sweeps and they pass over, and when they come under and I could kind of get the chance to use them towards each other. I'm training with Albino or Shaolin or somebody. I'm trying to stack them, and then I'm training with Dave. I'm passing over, and that's kind of how. And then I kind of always had a thought of always, because that's what jiu-jitsu is, right? It's like pass, mount, choke, armbar, right? It's always it tells you how to finish what it is, what the job at hand. Actually, in all areas of life too, it really does help.
Okay, so did you ever, or did you even think ever to say, hey, Hal, if I was back in Hawaii training with a few other guys, there's this other kind of idea and style of passing. What do you think about this, to get his input? Or you're like, I'm not even going to mention it to him because A, he's going to be pissed that I train with someone else, and B, he already kind of does things the way he does it? Or did you kind of explore it with him?
Jeez, I think we could explore it now, probably more together. Now, you know what? He saw me doing it. But at that time too, so many things were like on the videos, because that's how we learned from back then, watching all the videos of the guys in competition, right? The matches like Leozinho and Shaolin and all those legendary matches. That's how we learned. So I guess you would always see us doing different moves, but I guess he didn't exactly know where the techniques came from, I guess. But
Okay.
I guess it was because it took a while to, not a while, because it was pretty quick it happened, but it took a while to learn how to get the moves to work on guys like Dave or that, you know what I mean? It did take, but then once I started seeing and realizing, then it was all in the mix. Like, it was mixed in, so you couldn't see really what was going on, you know what I mean?
Okay.
But,
How
did you... I wonder what he would have said, and I should have, that would be good to talk to him.
Okay, fair enough. How did you end up leaving? Like, how did the day come where you had your last day at Half's Academy and went to Nobody Done?
Oh yeah, well, I just came back to Hawaii, and I was staying in Hawaii. The Shiruto, a lot of the stuff. It would always be funny, like, when me and Shiruto, because I was a blue belt when I met Shiruto first, then I was purple belt, and then was it purple belt? I might have been purple belt there. Or blue, yeah, I went up to the Brazil. But for the blue belt world championships, I got second. And then the way Shiruto, every time he would do something, then I would do something, and he would start saying like perfect, oh, that's perfect, like he can still get around it. And it was just all under stuff, and I think my mind was ready to absorb it at the time. Thinking I see a lot of Helps. I think I saw most of Helps moves as maybe becoming repetitive by nature, right? As somebody's with me, they're gonna start seeing the same stuff after a while. And then from there, it was just I started training with more guys. Then Shiruto had a couple guys come down. This guy Anderson Menezes, his name is Delo. A lot of guys came on over the time, so there was a lot of good. I got some training.
How did Half ever contact you and say like, hey, where are you?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so he just became here. Okay.
No, you know what it was? Roleta asked me if I was training over there when I was there. I told Roleta, and Roleta told Alf.
Got it. Okay, I understand. Okay. Now, when you got your black belt and you went to the Mundials and actually won the Mundials, if I'm not mistaken, the first American to win the Mundials at black belt, when you showed up there before, were you like, I could win this freaking thing? Or were you like, how am I even here? I just got my black belt. I'm around all these Brazilian superstars. How am I, even if I win one round, I'm going to be happy? Or you're like, no, I'm going to win this thing.
Yeah, I was, I felt that was just, knew I was good enough to make a good showing. I knew I was going to have to do a good showing. That because I got blue belt I got second in blue belt, and then the next year I fought brown belt after that. So that would, if I was brown belt, that would have been my second year brown belt. So I think from blue belt to brown belt was my fastest time. But from brown belt, I went against Teddy in the semifinal, and then I knew I had the experience and I was ready, and I knew I was going to be there. And I was at Mundials at 173s. I was against Teddy. That was the late medium. And then I know just back at Penn, you know what? I think now, like, thinking about it, like, I can easily see myself with that confidence because I know what that confidence feels like. But I said it before, I think, that when I got to the final, when I knew when I beat Fredson Owls, I'm sitting down eating lunch at some place, kilogram place, or anyway, I fully was there, and eating my food, maybe like some fish and rice or something, and salad. And I was sitting there, and something just clicked in my head. That was it. That was the moment where something clicked in my life, and it just said, no matter what happens, you have to win this match. So it doesn't matter if our breaks or your leg breaks. This is everything. You gotta win this no matter what. Because you might be able to get in this position again, keep getting the final. You have to win. Remember, that's kind of where I kind of clicked in life, period. You know, and just you gotta do something. You gotta get it done.
I like that. Okay, when did it occur to you that you wanted to try MMA? You were a jiu-jitsu fighter. When did one day you said, you know what? I want to do MMA. I want to do that. How did that even occur to you?
I always would box everybody at the gym, and then they were really didn't know boxing, right? So I was one of the best guys always boxing in the gym, and the jiu-jitsu gym. So I mean, yeah, whenever gloves are around, people would do that, box and stuff. Whereas how do you train MMA stuff? Alf always was training MMA stuff. It was always about fighting and all that stuff. I think the teacher has a lot to do with it. You know, he really was all about that stuff. Because he would tell somebody, he'd put everybody in the wall and tell somebody come off the wall. Then he'd kick your ass. And then it's just like those days, right? But then one day when Frank Shamrock came in, Frank Shamrock and Huff had an unbelievable battle. And it was just like, it was right there inside. There wasn't MMA, but it was just karate. The two guys, Huff almost topping him out, Shamrock getting out, but Shamrock's one of the hardest guys to top two ever. You know what I mean? Maybe now or whatever, but not when he was at his best. You know? Yeah.
Well, he had Shamrock was a good combination at that time because not only did he understand submissions, but he was a good wrestler, and not all the jiu-jitsu guys were good wrestlers yet. So that was a problem.
He wasn't even that great of a wrestler, actually. He just
I know.
Right? Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Next one, thank you, is the Kal Uno fight. So obviously we all know how that fight went and how it ended. Before that fight, did you think to yourself, man, this guy's not going to out-grapple me, but I'm going to outstrike him? Or did that just organically happen just by chance?
Yeah, that just, you know what, I was planning on fighting him for 15 minutes, but just that combo to it was like, when I rewatch it, it's not really one that you're going to, like, people teach as much. It's right, and then it's left jab, and his right uppercut. So no one ever teaches that. Yeah, the combo is right, left jab, and right uppercut, because he's nothing to it, right? So you know what I mean? I mean, just to even have a combo like that in any other fights is kind of funny, but it's, it just happened quick, and it was, you know what? It was one of the best things for my career, and one of the worst things for my experience, you know, as being a fighter and getting in there. So the first fight was like, it ended at 4:58 or something like that. And then the second one was Dean Thomas. It was 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And then it was 11 seconds Kal Uno. And it's like, you gotta be able to stay. You gotta keep your eye on the ball, right? You gotta keep your eye on the path while you're going out there, because you always because when you get involved with fighting, you're training for, well, however long the fight is, that will depends how long you're going to fight, right? But then when you start not, because I mean, anybody knows that you start looking for that knockout. The knockout comes when you're just setting up your next punch. You're like, what am I going to do next? And it's like, oh no, you went down. That's always when the knockout comes. It never comes like, here it is, about a knockout. No, but Pereira did it the other day, though. That was beautiful. Right? No, hold on, I'm going to knock him out. Yeah.
Hey, let me ask you about the first Pulver fight.
Okay.
So going into that fight, obviously he's a pretty good boxer, but you're like at least as good a boxer. You're definitely better at submissions. He's maybe a little better at wrestling. So going into that fight, I think someone who really understands fighting would pick you to win that fight. And somehow, not that he hurt you, because I don't think he did. Somehow he was able, if I'm not mistaken, to pull out a decision. What was the issue mentally or physically for you with that fight?
You know what? Massively, because at that time, I would just a workout, I would say, oh, Frank Shamrock, then I'll, oh, this is why you do jiu-jitsu, this is what Frank Shamrock does, this is what someone else does, and I was just compounding, compounding so much workouts on each other, but just because I really didn't know what I was doing and all that stuff, so it was I was just so exhausted by the time I was there for the fight and everything, and that's all part of the game, right? Because I don't train people, but if I was a trainer, I would never ever have my guys spar. If they walk in, I would never do a pop sparring on him. It would always be, the day before you're going to spar. That's the only way of walking. Tell the other trainer and his coach, but I'd tell him, I would say, hey, can my boy get a couple rounds with your guy tomorrow? And he says, yes. I look at my guy and say, okay, no, better kick his ass. I'll see you tomorrow. And that's how, and then let him go and think about it all night and then come back. But that's how you build a fighter. You know what I mean? Anybody can say, run back, run this way, run that way, run this way, jump up and down. Oh, you're tired, right? I'm good, right? No, it's where the guy's going to be in 2 weeks, where the guy's going to be 4 weeks. You got to know that. That's what you got to know, right? There's a lot of trainers, very few coaches.
Great points. Let's explore the Gomi fight, which, arguably was one of your best fights ever because he was really good boxer. He was a really good wrestler, and you just annihilated him. You took him down whenever you wanted. You obviously were better at jiu-jitsu. That was not in question. You were having no problem striking with him. So whatever the issues were with Pulver obviously didn't exist then, or it appeared that way.
You know what? After the Pulver fight that we fought, that ceremony was a Calvuro. And I always gave up again the second Calvuro fight. I think I won the first two, he came back and he started, oh no, I won first, and he came back, he won second, third. And I remember kind of just because it was coming to the point, and I see this, I always thought Tito was a best striker when he first started because you're more raw. So a lot of times too, it's stuff you learn so much, and then you're confused at what you're going to do it. You always want to play with the new toys or whatever it is that you get lost. That's part of the journey. The more you train, the more you learn, the less you know.
Put that in the quote book. It's going to be under BJ Penn quotes where they have the people's best quotes. Let's talk about Hughes 1, which was really a masterful day for you. I'm sure you have fond memories of that.
Can I just
sure.
Yeah, so going on and Gomi, what? That's kind of where, as I look at my career in different. So maybe my first career was within UFC at first, and then I did Gomi and Hughes and a couple of fights, and then the last part is when I would come back or whatever. And maybe I feel like I had 4 careers. I don't know, but it's just you can kind of see them in spurts, and when you're on, then you're winning. You can beat all these guys, and you can just see 3-4 fights down the road. You already know you're gonna fight, and you're gonna manifest it all, right? You're gonna make it happen.
Wait, God, good point. When you were going to fight Hughes, Hughes won. You had not fought him yet. It was coming up. I think you knew you were at least you knew you were a better striker. You knew you were better at submissions.
You all win the fight. Easy.
You knew you'd win the fight.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew I could beat anybody after when after I beat Goldman, I could beat everybody in the 155 and 170.
Okay. So that answer, because you really
was Kirk was asking to fight me. I go, let me fight Shark. He goes, why do you want to fight Shark? He goes, well, we want you to fight Hughes instead. I go, well, that's the only reason why I wanted to fight Shark, to get to Hughes. So once they made it right there, I was sitting in this room actually, talking on the phone with Joe Silva and Dana. Once they made the call right there, I knew we'd win. It was 100%. I knew everything already. I knew it. Yeah. It's just such
and I never knew you were so confident going into Hughes. Now hearing you explain it, it makes sense, but I didn't know you were that confident.
I entered my prime at the Bowman fight.
Yeah.
I'm at my prime of that career, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. The first time or the second fight?
No, I'm just talking about the first fight. Hey, by the way, I want to say something about the Rodrigo Gracie fight. And what I want to say about that fight is this. So your brother asked me to come to Hawaii to work on you before the fight, which I did. And I remember it was either the day before the fight or 2 days before the fight. I think it was 2 days before the fight. I landed in Hawaii. I went over to your hotel in Honolulu, and you were sitting watching TV on the couch or something. And I worked on you. And then I said something like, what are your thoughts on the fight with how, that is coming up in 2 days? I don't know if I asked you your game plan or your strategy, but I asked you, and man, you were so relaxed. You said I don't really have a game plan or strategy. I know I'm just going to kick his ass. And I was thinking man, that is some very amazing confidence and relaxation. And you did beat his ass. But I have a question about that fight. 2 questions. A, why were you so confident? Because he was pretty good at jiu-jitsu and pretty good in Pride. And B, dude, you passed his guard so many times. You looked like a black belt passing a blue belt's guard. And he's pretty good at jiu-jitsu. How did you pass his guard so easily?
Not here. But it's just a confidence. The confidence in just knowing that you can do it. That's the whole thing. You don't even have to. You don't have to be better. You just have to think you are.
Another good quote. You don't even have to be better. You just have to think you are. I like that quote.
Yeah, that's the truth.
I want to tell you something about that. When you said you don't have to be better, you just have to think you are. Alexander the Great, I'm sure you heard of his name in history. When Alexander the Great was going to fight the Persians, he was outnumbered greatly. But his mother told him that his father was Zeus. His mother told him that. And the Greeks at the time, they believed that stuff about you could be the son of a god. So as soon as he thought that he was the son of a god, he kicked the shit out of the Persians. Yeah.
Are you a god? And then she shoots the Ghostbusters, remember? And what does he say? He goes, when someone asks you if you're a god, you say, yes. You remember that?
I do. Let me ask you about the Machida fight. Obviously, you went up in weight classes. Your frame is not really made for that weight, but you did whatever you had to do to gain a little weight. You were still outweighed majorly, and he was a good fighter. And, you, quote, lost a very narrow decision, but you weren't really beat up or hurt. What are your thoughts on the Machida fight?
I wish I got about a little bit down. I really wish I won that fight. It was a crowd. I was confident and move, but some downs of the example of it. You don't have to be better in something if you are, because I wouldn't have started my Machida right now. When you know what I mean? When you know, it's 3 other people. Even they say and you would know this, a boxer, even to say Pacquiao that one, if he doesn't treat it like for like 2 years, 3 years. I mean, he comes out to a normal guy. Oh, you know what I mean? I mean, you don't train for, you can come down to a normal guy. So it's just when you either you got it or you know from start.
Okay, good. I like that too. What about the Henzo fight? I was there with you for that fight also. The Henzo fight, I'll just give my thoughts first, and then I'd love for you to, make it clear. But I don't think Henzo really was capable of hurting you because he was not going to hurt you with striking. You were good enough in jiu-jitsu not to get submitted. I think that was just a matter of the fight playing out and you winning however you were going to win. But what are your thoughts on that fight?
Yeah, I think when we did the fight, K1 was going to be involved with everything, and that was big. And we were trying to be as big as we could be, right, at that time. And I mean, looking back, the energy, I think maybe the energy, because the fight that was the hands on, I think Dwayne and Lyoto, and then hands on. And then I think we're coming down towards, we were getting tired of that certain, it was kind of like the second career kind of going down. And Henzo, when I looked across him, one thing he had different than every guy when I looked across him at the weigh-in was, he wasn't afraid though. The one thing I could see that he wasn't afraid.
I remember that. And it was that, was it Al Moana? Was it Al Moana Mall?
Maybe even, it was somewhere. It might have been Al Moana.
It was like that little stage at Al Moana, I think.
Yeah. One thing I remember though is Enzo wasn't afraid when I looked across at him. As a help, Rodrigo was, a lot of the guys, you know what I mean?
Just two more fights before we go to other subjects, but I have two more fights. The first fight was the Kenny Florian fight, which obviously you took his back and you choked him. And, he's a pretty good boxer, but you're probably at least as good a boxer, if not better. And I think you hit way harder. And obviously you're better at jiu-jitsu, although he is good at jiu-jitsu. And I guess he had some decent kicks from the outside. But what were your thoughts on the whole Florian scenario?
Just looking back, I mean, I think they did the wrong game plan as far as pushing me up against the fence. He tried to be the GSP game plan, but that was too small. GSP, we had the good double where he grabs deep on that and he goes like a steam and picks you up. And that's his body type and strength forward. He tried to do. It's strange he tried to copy that one. The thing. Well, by then you watch the GSP fight and push her on the fence a lot, but having a kid and getting with my baby mama was just inspiring. GSP for the fight, I thought things change too, and you got a baby and stuff like that. You think you don't want to get hurt, whatever it is, right? Not the same. You're not even close to the same after you have a baby. Yeah. You know what I mean? From signing wise.
Yeah. I noticed that with several fighters. The last fight I want to ask about, the very last fight, is Frankie Edgar #1. That's just the very last fight I want to ask about.
Yeah.
Frankie Edgar. Is that just more of the same of what, we mentioned with the first GSP fight, where you just quite frankly weren't that motivated and improved to fight?
I remember talking to Dean about it. I was like, are you sure about the Frankie fight? It's about it. He's like, you win the Frankie fight, you fight GSP again. I was just like, okay, for sure. Well,
were there? Okay, that's the last fight you had that I wanted to talk about before we go to other subjects. But before we leave fighting, were there any guys that you never fought that you wanted to fight in your prime? I'm talking like Gomi era, Hughes 1 era. Like, did you want to fight like Jake Shields? Like, was there someone that you wanted to fight that you didn't in your prime?
Not really. I mean, I wish I did see compete fight more in that sense, because it is true you do have to sit around, and that's your job. Your job as a boxer is to make sure the next guy who has that belt's the best in the world, right? But I can't blame him too. I mean, you're going to get beat up by a couple of times. you know what? So always good to walk out without the. And it is true. This is the toughest. This is the world's toughest competition. The world's smartest competition. And really, is. You know, fighters are the best problem solvers in the world. In 300 seconds, and solve our problems.
Okay, I like that. That's philosophical and kind of deep. How about fighters from a different era that obviously you didn't and couldn't fight because they fought in a different era and or a different weight class? But did you ever say, man, if I was in my prime, I would have liked to fight McGregor or something like that?
Well, I always tell myself if I was in my prime, I could always do better than anybody 55 or 70.
I would agree with that. Okay, let's shift gears away from fighting. I want to go to a different subject. Obviously, you ran for governor of Hawaii. Were you just like sitting at home one day and said, man, I want to be freaking governor? I mean, how did you even think to be a politician?
They kept closing the gyms. Yeah, closing the gym that were in the certain ones. And I ended up running. And, you know, I was having a hard time walking away from MMA. I would say to anybody, because even what Kelly Slater was being, we're talking about, he's like, I'm going to quit circuits and that. And now that I did run for governor, I would say that anybody just jump on the next horse and you start riding instead of sitting around, right? Thinking about the past. And then, you know, this how they say that the root of all suffering, right, is attachment and all that stuff, right? Right.
Well, I didn't know you were going to start quoting Buddhism. Okay, that's a good addition. Okay,
you know, go ahead. Sorry.
No, good. Just wanted to ask you. You know, your average citizen of the United States, they look at like the Congress, the Senate, the president, the judiciary, and you know they have certain ideas. They don't really understand what's going on. But you were kind of on the inside. I mean, you ran for governor of a state. What are some of the things, at least, that you can and want to talk about now that you discovered about the insides of politics that you really had no idea about, and now you're like, whoa, that's a world I was not familiar with?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can't go too far because I can't really tell you guys. I can't say the God's honest truth because I'll be thrown in a mental asylum for the rest of my life with a straight jacket.
I don't want it to be because of my interview.
Yeah, but I mean, if you ask me, I would just say, you know, it's not Republicans versus Democrats. It's a group, I would say, like running Hawaii, a group of about 150 people, maybe, I don't know, give or take. And some of them might be anything from Vietnam vets to Desert Storm, Navy SEALs or Delta Force. I don't know, whatever those people that can kill you at any time. But you know, I would think that maybe a good percentage of them are these kind of guys, and because you got to think about it in your head. Don't let the word election fool you. There's never been a peaceful transfer of power in the history of anything, anytime. Nobody's going to say, here, take my crown. Here, take all the money. I hope you do a lot better than I did. I'll just walk away like a loser. You know what I mean? I mean, this is to get us to not throw them out. You know what I mean? The election. But, I mean, can you win I always would say, you know, to win a fake election, you gotta, there's two rules to win a fake election. You gotta be the only guy in the race on election day. And the next rule is, remember rule number one. That's, you know what I mean? There's the only guy that said, so you have to win. But it's really interesting because everybody, like, the cost of living is, of course, the biggest problem over here. And it's just out of control. But it's not the biggest problem, because the biggest problem is the election. You know what I mean? That's the biggest problem. So whatever, I mean, you got to fight for every single inch. Someone cannot think that they can just go inside, I mean, you really, it's about organizing though. You got to get 25,000, 50,000 people together. And that's the kind of organization you need. And then you can really go in and talk to these kind of people and then go in there and you don't be disrespectful, but you really, because you have the people around you, it's just like the exact same thing as a shark. The shark comes in and swims. Even if you're standing outside on the wall and you're still kind of scared that he's down there, or you still just kind of show him respect. That's what you got to do, because these guys, they like I said, it's a small group. I mean, I don't think it's a small group like. Or he said it, that one comedian used to say it's a small group, but even in Hawaii, it's a small group. Everywhere, it's a small group. These guys, these guys. Go ahead. Yeah.
So no, good. Well, do you think, and obviously feel free not to answer this question, do you think that even a governor, even a president really can make that much of a difference? Or do you think there are powers that the average person has no idea about that these so-called governors and presidents are answering to?
You cannot be a governor or president. I mean, anyone can walk inside there and say, "Hey, we got to fix the voting machines. We got to fix the mail-in ballots." That's not even that close to the end. If they're not over there and they're not saying, they're not trying to make it illegal for the news station to announce the election winner before the election office, and they're not trying to make it mandatory for the election office to do a press conference to announce the winners, then shut up. You know what I mean? Really. I mean, there's no law there's no law that the news has to say the winner of the thing, even if you added it all up perfect. There's no law that the news has to say the winner, or they're going to be fined, or they're going to go to jail. So I'm sure the election office, they got whatever rules that they're allowed some kind of a criminal liability, I'm sure. So they grab the ball and they pass it to the news station. Then the news station can just do whatever they want after that. And that's it. I would say it's like the Office of Elections in the state is the health department on pandemic day. On voting day, the Office of Elections on voting day is fake as the Department of Health on pandemic day. And it's
another great quote. Another great quote, and I know how fake that health department is. Okay, let me ask you about, just switching gears. We talked about your childhood, we talked about fighting, we talked about politics a bit. Let me ask you about religion. Not so much that what is your religion, or are you religious, or do you believe in God, or whatever in particular. Not those questions, but what is your thought on a higher power, religion? What are your thoughts on those kind of topics?
I think, for me personally, I know there's the energy force on it, and you can feel around. That's why, it really does seem like the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. That's the energy force. But it is like I do say, because in God, the word for God in Hawaiian is Io. And then that's like Dios, and the I and the O, right? And then in Portuguese is Deus. And then it's like Portuguese is Deus, and then Zeus, right? Zeus is one, and then Jesus without the S's. Jesus without the S's is kind of like Eo, and you can kind of see it. It's like, oh yeah, it's all. I guess it's all one and the same. It's that same vibration, right? Just like when I say I love you, and like aloha, like the L and the O, like law. Or what, you know what I mean? Love and aloha and amor, and all the way down the whole thing. It's some kind of vibration that I think it could easily be both, like our guy up there too, and the force, and the life force, or anything, you don't really gotta wonder what's going on with everything, right? Because we don't trust the government anywhere near to how we used to trust them in the 80s or 90s, right? We don't trust anything now. So it's just it does seem like maybe now, like somebody put us here, and that could be the God and creator of here, but then he could have a God too. But it really is on a mountain level.
It is a great unknown, like you're you're pointing out, it is a great unknown. With that said, in your quiet moments, do you kind of think about your communication with this power, or it doesn't really occur to you?
I go, you know what? I'm sorry. I never ever pray. I'm sorry about that. I only ask on you when I need you. I know that's selfish of me, but I gotta win this fight today. Come on, let's go.
Did you when you were fighting, just rewinding a bit, the night before a fight, did you ever have those mental conversations with what you thought was a god?
Yeah. And the day of or whatever, and just going out to. And people say, "Oh, how did you feel walking in? What was it? I mean, the moment. What was it like?" And I tell the truth every time. It depended how I trained. Depending on how I trained is how I felt. It's the only answer to it. The only true answer. Because if you train perfect, you felt great. If you didn't, right? You did something wrong. Well, you never felt great. You always were there, and you always thought, "I thought I feel a lot greater than I do now. I don't feel really great right now." Right?
I remember one time we were, I don't remember which fight it was. I think it was after you beat Henzo, and you looked at me, you said, you said like, "Oh, it's time to be happy for a week again." Something like that. Like,
you don't got to drink a beer. You don't got to do anything. You just hang out and relax and enjoy the victory, right? A true natural high, though. True, a real high. Because music can give you a natural high when you hear some good music or something. But there's truly, after you win a fight like that, a true natural high. You don't need a beer. You don't need a smoke. You don't need anything.
When you look at the history of Hawaii, obviously there was a time that Hawaii was not a state of the United States. Do you kind of, looking at the history of Hawaii and the way things went down, do you kind of ever wish that it's not part of the U.S. and it remained how it was, or are you glad it is part of the U.S.?
You know what? If we can really use the Constitution in a court of law, I like that part. But you know what I mean? I really like that. I like law. In other sense, this kind of stuff, those are just labels for me. If they want to just change the name, for me, it does the place work correctly or not? That's what it is for me. You know what I mean? Does it work correctly? Is this how it's supposed to be? I mean, it's one of those things. Here we are in Hilo, Hawaii, the most lush this in the world, and got no more food than the Sahara Desert outside the door. How come? It's always comes down to that thing. Jump in your car, drive down the road, count how many junk, worthless crap trees if you count, till you count one tree with food. It's not an accident. With political strategy, they keep us hungry. And that's, I just looking at everything, and I just see like all these guys are trying to get the Hawaii with the United Nations and this and that. And I'm like, what? If you don't have the Constitution, that's a pretty stupid thing to do. You're going to get you over there. You know what I mean? You got to have some kind of insurance on something. And the world is really different to what a lot of people think it is, I think.
Yeah.
But
great point, and I would agree with that. Last question, and obviously you could just say what you think you might do, but do you think you would like to run for governor again, or you think you've had enough?
On the truth or the God's honest truth?
Whatever you're in the mood for. You could tell me off camera later.
Well, I mean, we gotta just be real on this. I mean, they gotta kill you before you get into the governor's seat. I mean, they're just trying to make you walk away all this time. I mean, let's not play around. You know what I mean? It's impossible. You cannot. Anybody who it looks like that they got in and did something and anti-establishment, that's all it was, the anti-establishment person. And when you see a libertarian, no, it was a person who was sold as an anti-establishment person. When you see a libertarian or a Green Party out there, that's just more ways for these guys, intelligence guys, to get their agents on the field. I mean, it just really, what Of course, I'm going to run for governor again. Why not? Right?
Well, I want you to win and stay alive. And in conclusion, I just want to tell a funny story for everyone listening, which you know, but you'll laugh at. So when I first started coming to Hawaii and hanging out with BJ, of course, he's from Hawaii. I'm born and raised in New York City. I didn't even know there was a kind of a language called Pidgin, but, I started understanding it a bit. And one day I was with BJ and we were with some of his friends and they said, oh, we'll see you at 4:00 or whatever time. And they said, guarantee 100%. Now I'm from New York City. In New York City, if you say to someone, guarantee 100%, it means guaranteed. You could bet your life on 100%. And then 4:00 rolled around and I was just sitting there with BJ. I said, where are all your friends? And he's like, oh, they're not coming. And I said, but didn't they say guaranteed 100%? He said, oh, that's just a saying here. It actually doesn't mean anything. He said, 100% means like 2%. I was like, okay. So now I learned that. So when I go to Hawaii, if I hear guaranteed 100%, I know it means 2%. So thank you for educating me.
Well, when someone because they don't want to tell anybody no, because it's more hurtful for them to tell them no. They'd rather the person go there and wait for a couple hours and then not be there. But saying no is a superpower. That's why. You know what I mean? But when you hear somebody talking, you're like, yeah, are you going to be there? As soon as they say guarantee, it's over. It's done.
Well, I was when I was learning, Pidgin from your friends. Again, I didn't know any, but when I was learning it, and one of your friends was talking to me, and I think he said the kind like 4 times in one sentence. Now there was no way I could know what he was talking about. So I said to him, you did say the kind 4 times in one sentence. Is there a reason for that? And he looked at me, and goes, because I'm lazy. So I thought that was
pretty that is funny. That is
Anyway, listen, BJ, thank you. Got some interesting stuff about your childhood, about jiu-jitsu, about MMA, about government, about some other, metaphysical topics. So I thought it was really interesting, and thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.